Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatihira Vanachari Yamunatihira Vanachari Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna and welcome to our Katha program leading to Krishna Janmashtami, which is in 2 days. So the meaning of Krishna Katha is that the jiva or the soul can consciously remember Krishna, and by remembering Krishna and his pastimes, his qualities, his abode, develop an attraction, and out of attraction a desire can develop to be connected with that Krishna, to be connected with his pastimes, to be connected with his abode. And this is highlighted in one of the key verses of the Bhagavad Gita, that a devotee or a pure devotee has his main occupation or main business in Krishna Katha. Makchida matkada prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantaschamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. That the great devotees or pure devotees, their thoughts always dwell in Krishna, their lives are always dedicated to the service of Krishna, and they're always busy with enlightening one another about Krishna, kathayantaschamam nityam, constantly speaking Krishna, and in this way, tushyanti cha ramanti cha, that their satisfaction and happiness increases, because they speak about Krishna, and not just speak about it, but they absorb and they become conscious. Actually, tushyanti cha ramanti cha happens then if true consciousness awakens. Because we have experience, we may read about Krishna, hear about Krishna, and there's no tushyanti cha ramanti cha. We just feel, oh, okay. I drag my mind through it, and okay, maybe one day it will come. Of course, there are a few things that are connected with that. It's not only the katha itself, it is of course also who speaks and what is the qualification of the listener. So unfortunately, I cannot be the pure devotee who speaks, because it said one should hear from the pure devotee, and from his lips, like Shukadev Goswami and all these great personalities within the Srimad Bhagavatam, from their lips any word is nectar, and it is pure consciousness actually awakening the consciousness of the listeners, or like if it's already awakened, like filling it even more with ecstasy. It's a living sound. We also sometimes know when we speak about something theoretically, or we don't have a practical connection to it, the people we talk to might sense that and feel, oh yeah, it's quite theoretical or dry. But if a person speaks, and you can sense this person has some alive connection to it, lives it, or has experience, or is conscious of it, you can participate more actively, your mind feels attracted. So the whole project is an effort, the whole Katha programs is an effort to give opportunities to both the speakers and the listeners to increase our Krishna consciousness, to increase our absorption in this Krishna Katha. Because ultimately, that's the mission of life that we have, going back home, back to God. That Srila Prabhupada says this innumerable times in his books. That's the point. And one thing is also we should know, if you say, oh yeah, I plan to go home, you have an idea where it is and what it is, right? If you say, I go home, and I ask you, okay, where do you live? And you say, I have an address, and I will figure out when I go there. And that's not really what it means, home. Home means a place that you're familiar with, that you like, where you feel home, where you like to go, where you want to stay. And actually it said that the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, or like in which has its peak in Goloka Vrindavan, is the actual home of the jiva. And so actually the Shastras remind us, wherever you are home, this is Vaikuntha. This is the spiritual abode, with all its different areas like Ayodhya, where Lord Ram is residing, Mathura, where also Krishna is residing, Dwarka Krishna. Then there's Goloka Vrindavan, where Radha Krishna are residing, Vaikuntha, where Vishnu is residing, and so on. There's so many spheres and areas, and the more we hear about them, and the more we absorb our thoughts, the more we can develop an attachment and a desire to go back home, back to Godhead. Because it is said, the only thing that keeps us here, the only thing, sounds small, but it's big, is the desire to be here. We can absorb every day, or observe every day how our desires are very much with this world. You know, there might be positive desires, like, oh, I have hopes and I want to get this and that, but there might be also negative desires. There's nothing better, so I'm here, or like there's still an open bill. You know, I still expect something. I still expect to get something that I didn't get so far. So there might be positive and negative attachments to the world, like with a person. You can be positively attached by really liking the person and saying, oh, let's have association, we hang out, we are friends, or we are partners, or whatever. And you can have negative attachment. Oh, I hate you and I want to see you suffer and I want to see you destroyed. So in this way I'm attached. Like also to Krishna this is possible. Kamsa was attached in a very negative way. I want to see you dead. It was his desire. And he was sleepless. His mind couldn't get rest. He was always absorbed in anxiety and fear about Krishna, and absorbed in hatred also, or like Shishupal. So this is also absorption. For Krishna ultimately, he's very kind. He appreciates simply the attachment itself. Might it be negative or positive, because for him, in a sense, it doesn't matter, because duality does not affect him, and he appreciates any little attachment a jiva develops toward him. Might it be out of frustration, maybe even denial, or might it be positive with devotion. Of course, we want to come from the positive path with devotion and say, Krishna, I consciously choose to be with you. And soon we celebrate how Krishna himself comes to us, you know, because he chooses kindly to appear in this world to remind the jivas and to attract them by showing his forms, his swarup, or his expansions, to show his pastimes, so that the jivas have an opportunity to be amazed, to be attracted, and to develop, like I said before, the desire, hey, this is a person, or like the Supreme Lord that I want to be with. You know, it's not just, oh, Shastra says, or I am subordinate to the Lord, and so therefore I must wish to go there. It won't work like this. I spent some time in a Christian community, and it was really a great time also. But I studied the Shastra also to quite some degree, and usually when I read the Old Testament, and it didn't give me a positive drive to feel affectionate and let's say, yes, I really want to go to the Lord. No, it was more like, watch out what you're doing, what you're deciding, and you better wish the right thing. And so I felt differently when I came to know more and more the Shastras of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, which encourage a different way of looking at God. So Krishna himself chooses to appear, but actually today I want to dedicate the speech to how he is preparing it and how his devotees are equipped with so many opulences that provide the how to say, appropriate ground for that Krishna may appear, because he does not just come there and nothing is done. You know, he's Krishna, he makes sure that everything is there. His abode is there, his eternal associates are there. Because we hear also like that Brahma, who is the chief of the appointed servants in the material world, you know, he is forwarding the instructions he receives from Vishnu from the milk ocean. You know, he's a very strong and deep connection with Vishnu. It's even said Lord Brahma, when he sleeps, because he's situated on the lotus flower that stems from the navel of Garbhodakashiya Vishnu, when he sleeps, he's not unconscious, but he's actually in touch with Garbhodakashiya Vishnu, and they discuss matters of creation. So they so they have a good relationship, a conscious relationship. And if Krishna chooses to appear, because he also uses his Vishnu avatars, and then they instruct Brahma, send the demigods already. that they take birth in various places and they certain personalities. We hear that these are actually demigods. And then also the eternal associates, they come first, must also come first, because if Krishna wants to take birth, his parents ideally are there before him. Right? And there's one scripture that came to my attention just recently. I was not aware that it exists, but I was glad when I read it that it does. And it is from Sri Baladev Vidyabhushana, and it's called Aishwarya Kadambini. We know the Madhurya Kadambini, which describes the 9 steps of devotional service. We recently had the seminar with Adi Purush Prabhu. And this Aishwarya Kadambini is not from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but from his disciple Baladev Vidyabhushana. So, and it is said, it is dedicated like this: this book, Aishwarya Kadambini, has manifested by the mercy of Sriman Mahaprabhu in order to mitigate the distress of those saintly persons who were unhappy due to not hearing Krishna's Aishwarya-lila opulent pastimes. So, yes, so I'm not a saintly person, but I was also unhappy. No, but because if you understand, like in the Vaikuntha pastimes, Vishnu pastimes, the opulence is prominent, the majestic feature of Vishnu is prominent, and the sweetness not. Right? But in Goloka Vrindavan, it is not like that it is bereft of the opulences of Vaikuntha. That would be incomplete. Quite the contrary, all the opulences of Vaikuntha are present in Goloka, but the sweetness of Krishna dominates. It's not about majestic, opulences. It's about Krishna's sweet features and qualities. And we will hear that Narayan is also there in Goloka Vrindavan, and he's God there, which makes sense because Krishna is not interested in being God in Goloka. He wants to be Krishna, the boy, which is like has sweet exchange with his parents, with his gopas and gopis. So it would be in the way to be God. So, but since there is a natural instinct of any jiva that there is God, so Narayan takes a residence there also. And even we hear that Nanda Maharaj, the father of Krishna, is worshipping Narasimhadev in Goloka Vrindavan. And you remember why? Someone once mentioned it, I guess some few were around. What is Narasimhadev doing usually? Why do we worship? Yes? Yes, to protect Krishna. That's the pastime. It's the Lila, of course. Narasimhadev comes from Krishna, but in the pastime, Nanda Maharaj is worshipping Narasimhadev because please protect our son Krishna. So then this rasa can happen, Vatsalya rasa, the protective pastime. Parents are protective. We see this also in the material world, of course. Who is more concerned usually, men or women? The women are more concerned, yes, because that's natural. It's instinct, protect and care. I mean, of course, men can be also like that, but so it's natural inclination of a parent to protect the child. And also when Krishna has parents, he enjoys that they are anxious about his well-being, right? And so Krishna, we heard yesterday, Govinda Prabhu was speaking how once actually once in a day of Brahma, calculated, once in a day of Brahma, Krishna chooses to appear personally, whereas on other occasions he sends his empowered complete or like partial expansions. The same purpose. We heard when we spoke Balaram Katha that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was even explaining that among the Dasavatars, the 10 regularly appearing incarnations, there is an evolutionary hierarchy, that they're on purpose come in this way and addressing also different species of life. It was at some points also very funny. But he says when a jiva adopts a form of fish, Vishnu appears as Matsya avatar. When they become more like a boar or like the animals, the beasts, it becomes Varaha, a boar. When they become half man, half animal, then Narasimhadev is there, because we see there are also mythological figures also in the Vedic descriptions which have man-like beings with animalistic features, and so on. And one thing that stuck with me was when men are short, Lord appears as Vamana. so he reciprocates to all living species. And there's some other quotes where he also appears among the trees as an avatar. So for each living form, he also has a form that he presents there, because then the jivas can relate. A fish can relate to a fish, and a dwarf to a dwarf, and so on. You know. And it said when they're more established and higher in more spiritual consciousness and religious principles, then it appears as Krishna. So Krishna is also related to the actual advancement of a jiva. Those who can witness the avatars, as Ramachandra, for example, or Krishna, are on a higher level actually of spiritual consciousness than those who witness the other avatars. That might be in regards to rasa, and there's simply, any to witness any avatar. But according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there's some evolutionary concept behind also the Dasa avatars. So the Brahma Samhita is giving us some information about this abode of Krishna, which I would like to address first. It's seen as a metaphor, as a lotus, as a big lotus, and in the center of the lotus, Radha and Krishna are being situated actually like the king and queen, like very majestic at the same time, full of sweetness. And around the lotus petals are the residences also of the gopis. And it said this abode is what he takes with him. We also hear Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So wherever he goes, also there is Vrindavan always coming with him. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his purport to the Brahma Samhita text 2, Sri Sanatana Goswami has told us as follows in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which embodies the final essence of all the books of instructions. Quote, he displays his pastimes here in this land as he used to do in Goloka. So Goloka is actually when we speak of the spiritual abode, which is seen as away from the material sphere, and Gokula is then when it's manifested in the material world, like there. The difference between the two planes lies only in their locations as high or low. That is, in other words, Krishna plays exactly the same part in Goloka as he exhibits on the mundane plane of Gokula. There's practically no difference between Gokula and Goloka. Save that is what is a bit the English sometimes a bit. There's no difference between Gokula and Goloka, save that this what exists in the shape of Goloka in the upper region is the same as Gokula on the mundane plane, and Krishna showed his various activities there. So this also further explained the differences that are being perceived are not due to Krishna is something different, but actually the perceiver has a different capacity of seeing or perceiving Krishna's pastimes. If a person is still more influenced by the material energy, his consciousness is covered to some degree, and we filter accordingly. It said some pastimes that Krishna exhibits are actually more due to, or like are seen with mundane eyes, although they're not. Like we have this whole issue of Krishna being immoral by having association with the gopis, which are to be considered married girls. But in fact, if you understand Tattva, Krishna is the origin. He is that there are his energies. The gopis are Prakriti, so to speak, in Krishna's Purusha. He's the actual enjoyer. And the gopas, they have no claim on the gopis above Krishna. And in the spiritual world it is said there is nothing like a marriage between gopas and gopis, but the feeling is there within the gopis and Krishna in order to facilitate the Madhurya Ras. So it's a bit more of a higher topic. But there's on the material world there's some perceptions of Krishna, what he does. Like also in the spiritual world there are no demons, but Krishna kills demons. in the when he manifests pastimes here. You cannot do it in the spiritual world. There are none. Jiva Goswami has also inculcated the same in his Bhagavad Sandarbha of his 6 treatises. To ascertain the plane of Goloka, Vrindavan is the eternal abode of Krishna, and Goloka and Vrindavan are identically one. And though both are identical, yet Krishna's inconceivable energy has made Goloka the acme, or the high point, the top of this spiritual kingdom, and Gokula of Mathura province, forming a part of the mundane plane, which is also a manifestation of triquadrantal vibhuti. Triquadrantal, these English words, we understand that the material and spiritual world are compared to a whole, which is split into 4 parts, 3/4 spiritual world, 1/4 material world. So like it's related to this. So Gokula and Goloka are practically the same thing. This is his abode that he also manifests. And if you understand like that in the spiritual world everything is full of opulence, like Vaikuntha, then we understand it also in Krishna's pastimes, all the opulences are there. It's not that some areas of Vaikuntha are full of riches and Vrindavan is a poor countryside place or whatever, you know. It's actually not at all like this, in case this conception arose in someone. And here in the Aishwarya Kadambini, it is written, sometimes the Supreme Lord, Sri Hari, manifests his eternal abode and associates within the mortal world in order to diminish the burden of the earth and to give pleasure to his own devotees. So about the purpose, we heard also yesterday, Govinda Prabhu was speaking. Before the Supreme Lord appears here, he sends his own abode and his respectable elders like his father. And then he personally comes along with his dear consorts and full opulence. So the opulences actually serve Krishna in his pastimes, and at the same time, his sweetness is dominating. Sri Krishna's eternal associates are fully transcendental, full of knowledge, expert and self-manifest. According to their respective moods, they please Sri Hari with their service, and they personally possess all opulence and prosperity. And we know Kadambinis, the word means a shower. There are also like 8 showers of nectar, where the author is giving us gradually more and more, building up from the abode to the describing also the glories of the associates of Krishna to the appearance of Krishna himself and his qualities. And here we hear a bit an account about the parents of Krishna. In the Vrishni dynasty there was a king named Devamida who had 2 wives named Kshatriya and Arya, who produced 2 sons named Shura and Parjanya, respectively. Shura had a devoted son named Vasudev, who married Devaki, a storehouse of good qualities. Parjanya, the king of Raj, had a son named Srinanda, who had a beautiful wife named Yashoda. So here we hear Vasudev and Nanda, they are actually half brothers coming from down in the Vrishni dynasty, from Kshatriya and Arya, from the sons Shura and Parjanya, who were actually, did I get it right? Yeah, half brothers, since they're different mothers. Shura and Parjanya are half brothers, so they also, and Vasudev and Nanda, they are also half brothers actually, coming from there. So when Vasudev appeared, everyone, including the demigods, became joyful and played various musical instruments. As the father of Sri Vishnu, Vasudev was respected by one and all. He was very liberal and giving charity and always served the Brahmanas. The greatly learned Shukadev Goswami described Vasudev as the lord of Devaki, who had all the talents of the demigods. Alas, Devaki held the supreme personality of Godhead, who holds all the universes, within her womb. What is more astonishing than this? So I would like to shortly stay with that statement, this astonishment that a jiva is getting the role of actually carrying the Lord within her body, as if he needs to take birth, though he is actually, this is the name also, Vasudeva in Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That means that he is the cause of all existence. Everything exists within him, and he exists within everything. So Krishna can play the pastime. He is not forced. That was also meant by Janma Karma Jame Divyam, that his birth and activities are divyam, means non-material and governed by the divine energy, not by Bahiranga Shakti, not by the material energy, but by Antaranga Shakti, the spiritual energy. So Krishna is employing the energies. He is not employed by the energies, as like the jivas are. We're forced to take birth, and Krishna can choose. And it's also interesting to look at how it happens. Like, might it be Vasudeva and Devaki, also Nanda and Yashoda? They didn't even have to have intercourse to receive Krishna, because he's not produced from the combination of matter. Actually, since Vasudeva and also Nanda Maharaj are pure devotees, they have a pure transcendental mind, Shuddha Sattva. And Krishna appears in a pure mind like this. So actually they carried Krishna within their hearts, because mind and heart is often meant kind of the same thing. When we speak of the heart, in the sense we mean actually the mind, because there the thinking, feeling, the willing, the consciousness is happening within the mind. And Krishna appears there, and then Krishna is transferred to the wife by initiation. The word Diksha is used in this context, that actually Vasudeva initiates Devaki, giving her Krishna, and Nanda Maharaj, also Yashoda, or like also in Gaura-lila, that Jagannath Mishra gives to Sachi Devi. He's also initiated by him. So in this way, Krishna is transferred into the womb of the mother, and then he remains there for some while, manifesting the pastime of his birth, and then he comes out. So in the meanwhile, of course, everything is abode is already there. His parents are there. A whole setup is there. And yesterday, Govinda Prabhu spoke of the drama that is there. Also, the villain Kamsa, the brother of Devaki, is also there, and there's a whole plot how Krishna is supposed to be killed, and also how Balaram appears is an interesting story. So I don't want to get too much into that today, but more like focus on the descriptions of these Aishwarya pastimes. Sri Nanda, the king of Raj, was a devotee of Lord Narayan. He was a pious king, well versed in the scriptures and surrounded by broad-minded associates, ministers and subjects who served him with great respect. He had a jewel-bedecked palace surrounded by high walls. Countless white bulls and cows graced his Goshala. Goshala, for those who may not know, that's the place where the cows being kept. Go means cow, and Goshala is the residence of the cows. Whenever he toured his capital in his chariot, Nanda was accompanied by the sound of various musical instruments. In this way, the most prosperous Nanda Maharaj enjoyed respect from all. So, side remark in terms of Varnashram Dharma, here on one side Krishna appeared in the community of Vaishyas, but we see also among Vaishyas, he's King Nanda, or like then there's King Vrishabhanu, and so on, that of course there also, in each community there must be a governing head, which is then the Kshatriya, and so we have there, although being in the Vaishya community, he's being the king there, Who can possibly describe the unlimited divine qualities of Yashoda, who held Lord Vishnu within her womb, whose breast milk was drunk by none other than the Almighty Lord, and whose lotus feet are respectfully worshipped by Lakshmi? All the friends and relatives of the king of Raj were learned, pious, and devoted to Hari, the gurus and the brahmanas. They enjoyed the prosperity of innumerable cows and horses. So we hear that there are palaces around in Vrindavan, decorated with jewels and like most graceful, and only the best, like we have also in the Arab countries, they have the most high-class horses, like only the most exquisite horses they keep. And similarly, like for India, it was cows, like of a very high caliber, they were being kept there, like that was actually opulence also. And not just that they were cows, each of these cows were also decorated with valuable gems and jewels. They were not just plain there, they had this really amazing decorations also. King Vrishabhanu a friend of Nanda Maharaj, was a great soul just as qualified as Nanda. His daughter, Sri Radha, was adorned with all auspicious qualities. The Vedas describe Radhika as the queen of all Lakshmis, or goddesses of fortune. All the Sutas, Magadhas, Bandis and other subjects of King Vrishabhanu were perfectly satisfied with his behavior. Daily the king would handsomely reward the various professional singers, musicians and artists for displaying their respective talents. Charity flowed like water from the king's hands, and thus the entire kingdom was very prosperous. There was no scarcity of food grains, and the desired trees constantly showered all types of delightful objects. So we have again Janma Karma Jame Divyam. Everything is governed by the divine, or like Antaranga Shakti. In the material world, even Kalpa-vrikshas were manifest, because the spiritual abode comes with all its opulences, like the Chintamani stones, Kalpa-vrikshas. Also the cows were, in a sense, there were also certainly some Surabi cows among them, because this is what comes always with Krishna, when Vrindavan is with Krishna. The jewel-studded mountain called Govardhan was filled with many beautiful streams, caves and temples. Govardhan became famous for providing flowers, fruits and comfortable abodes for the residents of Raj as a service to Nanda Maharaj. So also Govardhan, seeing there's so many opulence, so much jewels and beautiful natural opulences, like clear water, fruit trees that give most exquisite fruits and so on. And in Mahavan, there are like different forests. They're always called Van, Mahavan. Nanda Maharaj had a huge palace with giant gates. The Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu, who is unborn and full of auspicious qualities, appeared here. So there we heard before, like Vishnu is also present there in Vrindavan, in the palace of Sri Nanda Maharaj, being worshipped by him. Maybe it's meant here the deity form, but actually he's personally present. And in this way, also Krishna's, or like Narayan serves in Krishna-lila as the home deity of Nanda Maharaj. The city of King Vrishabhanu, who was always shining with the effulgence of his good qualities, was situated nearby. Sri Radha, the queen of Raj and the most beloved of the moon-like personality of Raj, appeared here. The flat plains below Nandishvara hill were bedecked with various jewels. Many clear water streams flowed down the hill, which was beautified with exotic fragrant flowers and delicious fruits. In the valley below the mountains was the celebrated city of the king of Raj. Many wonderful jewel-studded palaces and buildings adorned Nanda's city. There were many gorgeous gardens, neatly arrayed rows of shops, wells and clear lakes filled with cool water. So, and we can also see still in our history here in Europe, also in Switzerland, also the canton of Bern still has many castles and places which are a witness of how also in the time of monarchy the kings enjoyed opulence, and like there was, besides the ugly stuff, there was also quite some culture happening coming from either France and also back then Italy from the Romans, like gardens, like they had this whole like really sophisticated ways of how to arrange gardens in a very graceful way, you know, also building architecture, you know, or like arranging landscapes, you know, arranging a castle near a lake and so on. And then, so opulence is there, and then it is enjoyed like this. And we can understand Krishna is the Supreme Lord who is the source of all these possible enjoyments. He has these potencies with him, and they're always serving him in his own pastimes. They're also present there. You know, if you look in, sometimes you might go to one of these castles and you look in the museums, what did these people drink out from? You know, there were no plastic cups or like IKEA cups. They were really handmade silver, gracefully, how to say, eingraviert, you know, when they engraved cups, you know, which are, I don't know what value they have now. Or like this most special glass and or porcelain, how you say in English? Yeah. Yeah, which even passed as kind of plates and glasses and also knives and forks and so on, which were even passed on as a inheritance from generation to generation because it was extremely valuable. Maybe based on the handcraft, which was rare, which was really done by expert, handcraft people, you know. And so till now they have extreme immense value. So they were not eating from just and drinking from any kind of things. So this is standard for the royal order. So, and the Supreme Lord Krishna, who has all opulence, of course, his paraphernalias, they are most sublime. You know, everything is of the most sublime nature. So we can connect that what we can see here in the material world to get some idea, like what it means that Krishna enjoys opulence. Actually, when we look at that. And because all the talents human beings display are just a little fragment of Krishna's. Might it be art, might it be handcraft, architecture, landscaping, and so on. These are small fragments of Krishna's creative potency, and these energies are with him in his spiritual abode. So when you ever see something which is very beautiful, like an arranged city or garden and forest and so on, you can think of how Krishna has this stuff always with him. Or they serve him in his pastimes. There were at least 8 cowsheds with large gates decorated with jewels. Nanda Maharaj employed many guards who were bedecked with golden ornaments to patrol and guard the entire area. So here again, Nanda Maharaj as a Kshatriya, he had also people working for him to protect the city. Though in a sense there was nothing to protect in the spiritual world, we also have that. You might wonder, why does Vaikuntha have gatekeepers? It's even called place without fear. So what are they afraid of? What?
Of us.
Of you. I mean, because the thing is, it's described, Vaikuntha, there's Shvetadweep, the whole area, they're like tridents. And it said these tridents, they cut into pieces all those mystic yogis and personalities who try to enter the spiritual realm without being qualified. They will be kicked out, they cannot enter. Actually, it's more like about the mood that creates an atmosphere, a kingly atmosphere. There must not even be danger, but it's part of the opulence of a king. He has guards and all that, and that gives, this majestic atmosphere and rasa. So also king carries weapons there and so on. And he likes to use them in the pastimes, of course, Vishnu. But it's not based on that they are like truly enemies or some true danger. It's more like, pastime. And in the middle of the cowsheds stood a fantastic 7-story palace belonging to the king of Raj. It was decorated with flags, pillars, windows, ceilings, and rooftops made of lapis lazuli. You know what lapis lazuli is? This very this crystal, this purple crystal. Is it blue? Always consider, okay, it's blue, by maybe my color. Okay. Lapis lazuli, coral. Coral is red, right? This kind of not strong red, but it's kind of emeralds and other precious gems. And we also know that crystals have a particular power and energy, how they can influence the physical and mental well-being of a person. Crystals also used for healing, for example, if they're particularly shaped. Some of you might even use that or have heard of it at least. So if these things are around, let's say imagine a whole building is arranged like that, then also you have a completely different energy, a more pure, higher energy, because they're like sublime materials like this. So, but these are transcendental, lapis lazuli, coral, emeralds, and so on, but they all have their particular powers. Everything is generating the most pleasing transcendental atmosphere in the spiritual world. Let's just imagine if you would have like this room, just impartially like decorated with such powerful gems, with a completely different energy within here. Like sometimes you might go into a mountain cave, you can visit in Switzerland also so many caves where you see crystals, and the energy is completely different there within these places because of the presence of this material. So similarly, if the abode of Krishna is there, all his Shaktis are also present. So the Nanda's abode, which was devoid of any influence of Maya, had everything including knowledge, intelligence, compassion and miracles. It was the residence of Lakshmi Devi. Moreover, the brightly shining palace of the most respected Nanda Maharaj exhibited the best of artistic craftsmanship. A huge lake atop Nandeshwara hill supplied water to the cities, homes and gardens. The water was conveyed through channels and supplied the many fountains beautifying the city. The many glittering houses in that city were decorated with flags bedecked with lapis lazuli and diamonds. All the residents always enjoyed a festive mood. So that was the mood. A festive mood was always present there. No, never a day without any festival-like atmosphere. Vishnu, the husband of Lakshmi, joyfully resided within Nanda's palace. Nanda Maharaj's palace was surrounded by a tall, beautiful wall. The front portion of the wall was extremely enchanting because a mountain stream, means a river coming from the mountains, passed through it. Bless you. Many tall, luxuriant trees graced the palace compound and a deep moat surrounded the palace. You know, like also castles have this around this water arrangement that people can enter. So also there, like around the castle was like a little canal, you know, like that. And here another interesting aspect I would like to address, and then we can see if there are any questions or comments. The inhabitants of Nandagram used words like binding only to mean binding the hair, not binding teeth. Thin to indicate a thin waist and not any other part. Clay only for deer musk, you know, this most exquisite perfume, and not for mud. Danda to indicate the handle of a chamara and not a rod for punishment. And waves to indicate waves in the rivers and lakes, not to mean the waves of material enjoyment, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age and death. Words like hardness and sharpness were only used to describe the breasts and crooked glances of the young girls of that abode. Words like curliness are used only to indicate their hairstyle. So the particularity of language also was something I was contemplating on, because let's go back to comparing what is manifested in this material world in a monarchy or like in the royal order. They speak very differently from the so-called peasants, right? The so-called low-class people or the Shudras. So they have a very distinct way of speaking, because also there's a different mood, a different maybe intellect, a different way of living and style, and it creates a different atmosphere. You know, if a person speaks very gross or very undifferentiated, very simple, is not very good in expressing itself or herself, that is not so enjoyable. There's not much rasa develops, but also it expresses a particular state of consciousness. Language reflects consciousness. So the more distinguished or like the more defined or more elevated a language is, the more also consciousness can develop. Also in philosophy we understand that the more terms I have and ideas of the terms, the broader my horizon, so to speak, can get. So it's all a lot depending on language and how it is being used. So here the residents of Vrindavan, they used language in a very distinct way. And this also creates, again, another mood there. You know, you can understand if you go into a circle of people who speak very distinct and you get a sense why they do and how, you can enter a different mood, a different level of relationship also. So all these things are there, like, and there's so many aspects to Krishna's abodes and Krishna's companions and associates. And if you take it into account, then we can see, that there's a whole environment and what it means to be in a Krishna-lila. It's not just Krishna. I mean, sounds strange to say not just Krishna. Of course, he's the center, like from whom everything emanates. At the same time, let's also understand how he manifests his own opulences within the abode and within the associates he is surrounding himself with, who facilitate, so to speak, and assist in his pastimes. So this book, Aishwarya Kadambini, I personally appreciate it a lot. It's very inspiring to me, and maybe some of you also might want to once have a look in it. Hare Krishna. So that was my part today. Are there any comments or questions? You must take the microphone.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I just wanted to ask if you could quickly explain the different places again. I'm not really clear about that, like Gokula, Vrindavan, how is it related and what was taking place?
Mm-hmm. Means you mean particular now in Krishna-lila or like in general the spiritual abode?
Krishna-lila.
Mm-hmm. So the terms Goloka and Gokula are referred to, it's described in the Brahma Samhita purport as higher and lower in their positioning. So Goloka is the pure transcendental abode where Krishna resides and performs his pastimes, and when he comes with his abode within the material sphere, it's called Gokula. So, and there, it's essentially the same thing, but since they're jivas on a different state of consciousness, they may perceive it a bit differently. What's happening there. And Goloka or Gokula is of course the most intimate part of the spiritual world, where Radha and Krishna reside, where Krishna enjoys his most intimate pastimes with his devotees. And then they're surrounding that, because Vrindavan, if I'm correct, now, is geographically, if you take it as a map, within the district of Mathura. Mathura is, so to say, the canton, and Vrindavan is the city within it, and it was governed by Kamsa at that time. You know, and so he was, of course, trying to assert power also over Vrindavan, and then so this way some different areas expand from there. Like there's also different forests, like Mahavan was mentioned, the Vrindavan. Vrindavan is actually also relating to Vrinda, the forest of Vrinda Devi, you know, and so like that.
For example, Gokula is also a town, isn't it, or a village? Or
yeah, it's the village. Actually, here it's interestingly, it's said village. Here, like it's made more the impression of a town, and also the translation town is used because a village with palaces and many does not, in a sense, qualify anymore as a village. But it has, if my understanding is correct, more also of a village atmosphere, like that is created by all the Goshals and the Vaishya community which is around there, and how Krishna likes to enjoy this pastimes as being a cowherd boy. So therefore it's village-like. And at the same time, the opulence of Vaikuntha is also there. So it coexists. It's a village and at the same time a very opulent city. Like Zurich. All right.
But what I mean is that Gokula can therefore be like some abstract term for some bigger area, and also be a village.
You know, get where you're going. Well, yes. The difficulty that also Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur explains, of course, we try to accommodate these terms like city, village, district, and anything related to Krishna within the terms we have available in the material world. So we try to fit it in there in order that our mind can grasp it. But it's also mentioned we should not try to kind of frame it within some kind of geographical term, or try to make it kind of measurable land, or like it's an abode, transcendental abode beyond time and space, which can manifest it within time and space, but at the same time not losing his transcendental nature. And this is inconceivable, but it's how Shastra is saying it. It manifests within the world without becoming part of the world.
But could you maybe just very quickly, sorry if I disturb, but very quickly in Krishna-lila, the stations, like first Vasudev and Devaki, then is it? Yeah, can you maybe just say the place?
Well, Krishna appears first in Mathura, in the how to say Kerka. What is the place where they keep prisoner? Yeah, in the prison of Kamsa, Vasudeva and Devaki receive him, and there actually first he appears as Vishnu. he shows his four-handed form, and there's a reason for it. Once the mood all of Vasudeva and Devaki is more of an Aishwarya mood, they appreciate that. And also he said, then I showed you that form so that you are maybe duly convinced that you truly received the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because if he would have come immediately as Krishna, they would think, oh, what a beautiful divine child, but maybe not being so convinced that this is God. So he showed first that form, and that's an interesting rasa of the parents again. They were anxious. If Kamsa said he will kill you, it's God himself coming. And they are concerned for his safety, that's Vatsalya rasa. Huh? And then he assumed the form of little Krishna, and then we know the whole pastimes how Yogamaya arranged that actually Vasudeva can at night when the guards were put to sleep and the door opened, he went to actually Vrindavan and placed Krishna in the house of Yashoda, who at the same time had received, and he took back, sometimes the details I confuse. But then he was transferred to Vrindavan, Krishna. No, this is practically Vrindavan and Gokula and Gokula and Vrindavan are identical. It's the same place, as far as I understand. No?
In the Krishna book, it is mentioned that after the pastime of a Putana, Nanda Baba's older brother, Upananda, he was like afraid that more demons come, and he decided to move from a Gokula or to Vrindavan. So from this sentence, I conclude that the first pastime of Krishna took place in a Gokula, and then afterwards they moved to Vrindavan.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that insight. Yes, there's so many details about that, and all right. Yeah, certainly worth to research that. Uh-huh. All right. Then thank you very much. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ja, aber eine Frage von jemandem, weil in der spirituellen Welt heißt ja Oppulence Vrindavan. Aber genau, aber hier sagen wir immer halt Vrindavan, das heißt irgendwie ist dann auch die Gewichtung anders.
Das ist ja Gokula Vrindavan jetzt auch.
Ja.
Ja, stellt man morgen, wenn man spricht. Vielleicht haben wir den nächsten. Um so das Stream zu schauen.
Ja.